Welcome back to our video series in which we're showing you the complete process of designing a gut-friendly protein brand. In episode 1, we aligned on strategy and locked in on a final stylescape. Today, we're going to turn that into working assets. We'll begin by designing sketches, creating their digital footprint, and then finally designing Gutly's logo system. Post which, we'll move to packaging with just one aim in mind, to make gut-friendly protein obvious at a glance. So let's get started. With strategy and stylescapes out of the way, it's time for our logo design team to take charge.
Before we start designing the logo, we have to first figure out what we're trying to solve for. The number one problem with the old logo was that the smiley face at the bottom of the logo was very on the nose. And while it quickly communicated the happiness part of the brand, it kind of felt like a cliché, so it lacked originality. So that is something that we want to kind of let go of. The second problem that the old logo had was that the hierarchy of the typography was a little weak. There was nothing that we could kind of put emphasis on, right? Everything was kind of in the same hierarchy, happy, gut, and the smiley face. The third problem that I thought that the logo had was that it lacked scalability. It won't work in macro spaces, right? Because as soon as you make it very tiny, the smiley face might just look like a line and not a smiley. So everything that it was trying to convey would kind of become ambiguous and hence redundant. So what we finally did was we kind of eliminated half of our problems by changing happy gut to gutly, because now we have a hero that we can emphasize here, considering it's also a short, crisp word that gives us a lot of room for exploration, which is exactly what we did with the different forms of the logo that we presented. So the first concept, a very interesting, a very dynamic, very modern concept that we kind of came up with. It was a very bold kind of typeface that we went with. It had that sense of rawness. But why I said dynamic was because the letters in the name itself would be replaced with ingredients, so to say, that the protein powder has. And so that gave us a very sort of playful and interesting way to use the logo as a graphical element in a lot of the collaterals as well. The second concept was a much more subtle concept, I would say. We took the shape of a gut and we kind of implemented that into the form of the letters, where if you'll see the G shape, the bottom of the G, it kind of has that line that forms the shape of a gut. And other than that, we kept it super simple, super clean, so that that subtle representation could kind of come through. The third concept and the fourth concept were inspired by the same idea. But how we kind of differentiated them was that the third one was a small case, very easygoing, clean looking type form. And it kind of features the shape from the stylescape, the good bacteria shape from the stylescape. Inside the G, we use that as kind of the negative space in the G. We kind of tweaked that in the fourth logo, where we kind of went with an all caps, slightly more bold, slightly more premium looking font, and we kind of moved the bacteria, the good bacteria shape from the G and put it at the end of the word gutly, again to make it short, crisp, impactful, bold. So yeah, that is how we kind of solved all the challenges that we faced with the old Happy Gut logo, and these are the four concepts that we presented to the client.
After presenting the logo explorations, the client selected the fourth option without hesitation. With the direction confirmed, the team moved into the next step and created the brand's identity. A brand identity is the complete codified system that makes a brand recognizable and consistent across every touchpoint. It translates strategy into tangible assets and makes them usable for the real world. After which, the team refines the logo and proceeds to create the packaging design for the brand.
So when it came to the packaging, we were not just solving for design, because that's something we kind of solved for already through all the graphical elements, the color palette, the type form, and everything that's already been established in the identity. What we had to start from was the base, which was going to be the shape of the package. So we went with a stand-up reusable pouch that had like an airtight seal at the top. One, because it's very convenient to store and reuse, and of course it allows us to kind of save costs when it comes to shipping and storage, because a box or a tub take up a lot more space. The third reason would be that it's also easier for the consumers to carry and portion around. Another thing that kind of inspired us with this was the fact that Gutley produces its protein powders in smaller batches and that they use natural ingredients. Pouches kind of became a more practical choice in that regard as well, because it avoids the need to add artificial preservatives or anything artificial within the powder to preserve it for a longer time, which is something you often have to do with tubs. Now, when it comes to the design side of things, we already have all the basic elements established. So what we went ahead and did was explore different variations using those things that were already set in place. We had to solve for two categories. One was the egg white based protein and the other one was the hemp seed based protein. And they both had flavors that we had to solve for. So we kind of had to come up with a cohesive system that worked across all these variations. We obviously wanted to differentiate ourselves from the competitors. So we went with a very non-clinical looking packaging style. We used the yellows and the greens because they establish a sense of trust and comfort. They also kind of evoke that sense of joy and energy, which is something we're trying to incorporate throughout the brand, because we're talking to people with sensitive guts. So obviously you would want your tonality to be a little bit more happy, so to say. As well as that focus that we wanted to put on the no bloating, no abdominal pain, and just clean protein idea. And we just played with it to come up with something new and refreshing that the consumer would want to pick up off the shelf.
After multiple rounds of exploration, we zeroed in on a design language and packaging system that simply just feels right. It carries the warmth and clarity we set out to achieve and reads gut-friendly at a glance. Before we present this to the client, we always build a mock-up and test how it feels and looks in the context, which means high-fidelity 3D renders plus some quick print prototypes. We check legibility at shelf distance, how the vertical numbers sit on the pouch. Once the packaging passes those tests, the system is ready for pre-press and rollout. Post which, the team presented the full design system to the client and they loved it. But all's not done, because in the next episode, we shift to UI UX and focus on how this identity becomes a functional web system. If you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any episode from Simple Plan Media. We're rebranding Gutley and you're watching From Brief to Brand. We'll see you in the next one.